Welcome back, and we are talking about the costs of data with my guests, Thibaut Touch and Duncan McLeod. And we have received some of your tweets. Mzwandile Sibinda is on Twitter, and Mzwandile says data is not a luxury anymore, but a necessity, and says ICASA and government are not serious about reducing the prices of data. They want us to be happy that data is not expiring anymore, and that's it. But more can be done, don't you think, Touch?
As I said, I appreciate, the reception that the Minister of Communication afforded me, and all I asked was for her ear, just to share some of the concerns out there. And I feel that we are going to see a more aggressive approach. I think government is starting to realize that, we gotta prioritize this mobilization of reducing data. So we can only hope, and my best bet is we are going to see a price cut before elections. It's the only way, we'll see.
Well, price cut is relative. You see, you can have 10 cents cut on the cost. That's what now, 99 cents, you said?
It depends what.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, yes, it's true, it's relative, but I think by now, we are not saying data must fall doesn't mean networks shall shut down or shall not run at no profit. But we should look at other countries where if we are the second most expensive in the BRICS community alone, we should look at, how is it that Kenya and Tanzania, which operates under Vodacom, which is in our backyard, gets lesser costs or affordability than those who manufacture it.
Well, let's learn from other countries. I'm sure there are countries that have gone through this before and found a way of solving the problem. And we're not talking necessarily Venezuela or Zimbabwe here.
Yeah.
There are those countries that have done it before. And I'm sure the ICASA members are widely traveled. People in government know what's going on in the world.
Sure.
So we can always learn from others, don't you think, Duncan?
Yeah, absolutely. We probably shouldn't learn from the Americans because that is a highly concentrated market and prices are quite high for mobile data there. We should learn lessons from around the world. Kenya is an interesting example because Safaricom is a dominant operator in that market. They've got 80% market share, yet their mobile prices are seen as more competitive than South Africa's. So I'd be keen to understand the dynamics of that market that allowed that situation to develop. Yeah. But absolutely, we can learn different models from different markets.
Well, Tifo wants to know from you, Duncan, about broadband infraco, the role and relevance thereof as a state-owned company with extensive network infrastructure, and that they should also be playing a role here, but more specifically about digital migration process to unlock the TV spectrum.
Yeah, the digital TV migration has been a disaster. It should have happened many, many years ago. And the fact that broadcasters are still sitting on a big chunk of that spectrum is a problem because it needs to be allocated to the mobile operators and it needs to be used to facilitate more competition in the sector. And the fact that it has simply taken so long for this process to happen is a huge problem because that spectrum in question, so-called digital dividend spectrum, is ideal for rolling out broadband services in rural communities. It's just the propagation characteristics of that spectrum make it ideal for that. So the fact that we haven't finished that project, I think, has had a direct impact on keeping mobile prices higher than they should be.
Well, and Netflix is marching in and marching on in the meantime.
Absolutely, Netflix. But Netflix could be so much bigger in this market if prices were lower.
Well, not only Netflix, I suppose local broadcasters, for instance.
Yeah, there'd be more competition for local broadcasters. There's no doubt about that.
But also to add to Duncan, I was in Alex on Monday, and I posted this live on Instagram. A young man who built an app that integrates Uber, Taxify, I think about 4 means of transport in one app. Put this app from his shack in Alex. I went live on Insta, designed it, and he's in need of 50,000 rands to activate it. So I called him up and I said, how many of you guys worked on this? He said 6 of them. You got 6 people off the streets putting together an app that is going to reduce the war between the taxis and Uber, of which government is struggling to minimize that violence, as you see SAP as biggest nightmare. And if we don't realize the significance of enabling young people from Alex, Umlazi, to come up with these form of innovation, we are going to, find ourselves in a position where we complain about the escalation of crime. But what do you do when you're so gifted and talented, and the conditions you're living in don't allow your mind to thrive?
But something personal to you.
Yeah.
Right? When you went to Parliament and spoke about data must fall, the campaign and so on, people thought that you were the messiah. You were going to come back with a solution, and you did not come then. And then they turn around and say, well, Touch is a sellout, data prices are not coming down. How do you feel about that?
No, well, you have to strike the conversation. You have to change the narrative. One had to raise the argument at a point of getting the attention of Parliament. I sat with Vodacom, I sat with MTN, and still this day waiting for my meeting with Cell C. All I put down was the proposals of what we think can work for small businesses like Touch HD, the other radio stations that are operating online and TV platforms.
Sure.
And the only the conversation was to say, zero rate our business platforms so that we can have fair competition. And one was able to get that far. I got Touch HD zero rated. And that is, to me, that justifies the cause. The bigger picture is to fight the cost of data.
Duncan, I want your opinion. Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni says tax must be charged on social media users, people on WhatsApp, Twitter, and Facebook. Your view of that? Says they waste time gossiping anyway. So, to his mind, the costs are actually too cheap and the state should make money out of that. Brief response.
Terrible idea, and it sounds like an attempt at censorship to me.
Yeah.
He's probably trying to raise money for the fiscus, but what a dreadful idea. I mean, communication should be free as much as possible. And
the Touch, you said earlier that you believe prices are going to come down before elections. You still believe that?
I feel that it's the only way
to do that.
To win.
And Duncan, we're closer to that at all?
I don't think there's going to be any significant decrease in prices, not until we see a meaningful change in policy, until the operators get access to more radio frequency spectrum, and I can't see that happening before the next election, to be honest.
It's not happening, Touch. You go along.
Listen, every day we are driven by one thing, risk. So I'm putting my bet on the fact that it will go down. And that's the society we live in. And this, unfortunately, we have to, put our dices in places where we don't even know. Yep. But I can only hope for the best before the election, the best thing that can happen to South Africa.
And the ball is still in Nikasa's court, I suppose, right? Duncan, thank you very much. And Touch, thanks again for having been my guest. And that's the Modisa Network for tonight. Thank you for having been with us, and join us tomorrow evening. We will be discussing health matters with the South African Health Ombudsman, Professor Malekapuru Makhoba, and also the chairperson of Parliament Standing Committee on Public Accounts, Themba Godi, talking about SAA, municipalities, corruption, water, a whole number of things. So make sure you join us tomorrow evening, 6 p.m. And from us, good night to you.